having me this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for.
One of the topic was chosen was kind of working through COVID-19. My name again is Greg Petermeyer. I'm the COO of Sev-Rend Corporation. We're a printing and converting company of flexible packaging for the food industry. So one of our signature product lines that we participate a lot in, as you open your refrigerator and you have a bag of mandarin oranges with that mesh netting and the printing that's on those, we do that type. Everything from onions to avocados to mandarins to navels, anything in the fresh produce market that's kind of tubular type. We do sweet potatoes, all types of things related to that type of product. So it's an item that we all enjoy and use every day as consumers. That has a relatively stable to short shelf life, much different than processed foods. We are located in Illinois, in southern Illinois, in Collinsville, Illinois, and we're just basically, for a geographic standpoint, just about 15 minutes straight east on the Illinois side of St. Louis, geographically. So we're about 4 hours south of Chicago, 4 to 5 hours south of Chicago area for Illinois. So what happened in working through this COVID-19? Obviously, everybody woke up in early first quarter this year, hearing the signs early on in February of the COVID-19 virus. I actually just came back from Germany in February. We have an international trade show that's called Fruit Logistica that I was attending. We were a little nervous going over because of the COVID-19, what's that mean, what's going on. We thought it was really, isolated to China. So we made the decision to go. We did the proverbial taking all the wipes in the airplane, wiping everything down. We had masks, but it was pretty relaxed. People were concerned, but not reclusive yet in that process. So we went to the trade show. Going to the trade show, we had our first kind of wake up. We got a waiver we had to sign saying we weren't to China, we weren't in Wuhan, we weren't anywhere that there was a COVID outbreak that we knew of. We signed all that because obviously we weren't. We went to the trade show, and the trade show was kind of like an empty airport. A lot of stuff, but not a lot of people. The people manning the booths were there, but floor traffic was very low. And a lot of people had just canceled. There usually is an Asia Pacific region in the trade show that was desolate. A lot of them didn't come, and the ones that did come, I think everybody avoided the aisles just because of the perception of COVID, what was going on. So that was kind of odd. And so we had what we considered a good show. We saw our major suppliers and then came back. Coming back, it was about 3 weeks later, that's where the international travel ban came on with China. So we were just ahead of that. And so that, we really kind of said, okay, what's really going on in this whole COVID-19? And then obviously in the US, the first things popped up, the initial stages of that, of the COVID. So coming through that and being in Germany and coming back, I took the initial steps of coming in and looking at our employee safety right away. We looked at, one of our thing with food safety is there's obviously a lot of personal hygiene that goes into it, because obviously you don't want to have product coming home that has, been contaminated from the supply source, which includes packaging. So we have a very high personal hygiene training situation for part of our food service rating that we have for products. So we revisited that, and we added COVID-19 to that personal hygiene step. And then we added the effect of certain sanitization stations in our plant, hand sanitizers, those type of things we brought in and put in the facilities for anybody using a computer, anything that is common area. We added that early on. And we, by nature of our business, social distancing works in our production floor. Most machines are 20, 30 foot long for printing machines and converting machines. So we don't have people standing 2 feet apart. There's natural social distancing, but we raised the awareness of social distancing at that time. We then initially put on a travel ban for our sales team. There was really no traveling. We shut it down, and sales team were Our sales team is remote anyway, so we said work from home, as you do sometimes anyway, but just enhance it. Make your phone calls to your customers, talk to them, and most of those customers at the same time were saying, hey, don't come in, we'll call you on the phone, we'll video chat, we'll do whatever it takes, but let's just ride this out for these few weeks and see what happens. And then we also had our essential employees here in the plant and our vendors. We basically stopped our vendors from making cold calls on us or coming in and trying to walk in off the street and meet with a person who handles forklifts or whatever. Basically, we locked down the plant saying only essential visitors can come in. You have to call, schedule an appointment, and we have to determine if it's needed or not. No disrespect to people trying to sell things, but it had to be a need for it versus just coming in and doing it. And at that point, then the first thing that struck us was our supply chain. We did a high-level analysis of those, anything related to coming from Asia, really. Do we have anything coming from Asia? And we really don't. Some of our customers had imported some things directly, some finished packaging. A lot of pouches and things were coming directly imported from Asia. We were not. We're manufacturing. But we were looking for any type of exposure that we had. And then we soon found out that some of our suppliers may have had a dependence on some Chinese supply and some Asian supply. For example, a lot of pigments that are used to color inks, a lot of those pigments are no longer manufactured in the US because of restrictions. They're being produced overseas. So our ink suppliers were getting part of their resins to make the colors from China. So, okay, how many colors are at risk is certain types of things, and we work through that with our suppliers. Then we kind of hit phase 2. That's where the government started shutting things down, and called flattening the curve, as everybody remembers. Our state of Illinois went into a lockdown, as most states did. And we, at that point, we added the personal protection. The PPE had to be added as part of the state mandate. So we have the masks, we have the types of things that are necessary here. We had already done the sanitization, all those types of things were already in place. We basically just added the PPE, and anybody going into the plant is required to wear PPE, where before we were not required if we were able to maintain distance, but we're wearing PPE going into the plant. Then a lot of states had essential business classifications that had to be designated by the state. Illinois was not one. They left it kind of self-regulation, saying we're part of the food supply chain, we're deemed essential. Several of our suppliers that are out of the state had to automatically were shut down by their states and had to apply to reopen. So what that meant is applying to reopen meant you had to get lawyers involved in it. Anytime you get lawyers involved in applications with the state, it takes time. We had several key supply chains that were essential. They did medical packaging. They supplied materials for the medical packaging and food packaging, but they were shut down. It took them a month and a half to get opened up by their own state's regulations. Okay, think about taking out a month and a half lead time in our supply chain. We're consuming all this time and they are not manufacturing. So there we had to really look at that supply chain analysis again. Where else can we get different supply? Or how do we manage? We were talking to that supplier almost every couple days saying, we've applied, we're waiting for the attorneys to tell us, we're waiting. And anytime you shut something down in manufacturing, it's not like turning a light switch back on and it starts producing the next day. Several things take almost a week to start back up. Some things have ovens, have heating elements, have processes that take time to get back started. It's one of those things you don't stop once you start it. So looking at our supply chain, we knew we're not going to get certain supplies for weeks. So we went into conserving our raw materials. Part of our industry, it has a standard plus or minus 5% in our production. We took everything to 0 overruns. We call them overruns because we can't stop on a dime, but we were putting it back to 0, meaning that we were going to produce exactly what the customer needed or a little bit less, just to conserve the raw material so we could keep as much of it supplied to the outside sources as possible. And we were monitoring raw materials basically on a daily basis. From there, we went and added a work from home policy in the office. We reviewed our whole policy. So people here, we had to put the pressure on the IT systems. We had people working from home already, meaning our sales team was remote. We had a couple of people like myself that had home access, but didn't do it as a formal daily activity. This put real pressure on work from home because like myself, I have 2 monitors, okay? At home, I only had 1 monitor, you know, so there's things that you're kind of working with one hand tied behind your back. Your home office wasn't set up the same way as your work office is set up. So it put that in, and we had people that wanted to work from the office because the resources that they have were much more readily available. We allowed some that were concerned about COVID. Anybody who had access or in contact with someone that they think had COVID to work from home right away, to kind of self-quarantine but still be productive in our work environment because they were not feeling any symptoms, but we didn't want to bring it into the office or to the company. So we had to do a lot of changes IT-wise. Our IT companies are frantic about getting things upgraded, getting some more laptops for some other people. And then we had some people come back in, and we rotated people out of the office almost every week just to say, get out, test your home environment. In case we do have a breakout of COVID-19, that we need everybody out of the office. We want to make sure we're testing our systems. So we were able to kind of do it limited. People, you know, 1 week I was out, another week another person was out, another week is another person out, but they came back so that we were able to keep the operations moving. And part of that then was also the discussion with our employees and our office staff about keeping people comfortable in a COVID-19 environment. If you're not comfortable, work from home. If you are comfortable, come in. We want to try to make a safe work environment. We have to protect the operations of the company and support it. Not everybody can be at home. It's impossible in our manufacturing environment. So most people recognize they were a better contribution here, but if they had a need, they were comfortable in going back home, whether or not they had a family member that was exposed, maybe a high-risk individual in their close immediate family. Maybe it is childcare that was causing them to stay at home. They were comfortable knowing that they had the option of doing it when needed. And we've had people bounce in and out through this whole time frame of being able to do that. But they felt compelled to come back as soon as they could because they felt they were more contributing to the overall operation, but knowing they had the comfort level of being able to get out if they needed to, if there was a risk situation that they came into. Then one of the big thing was we did a deep dive into that supply chain because of, suppliers being shut down or some of their suppliers being shut down. It's not just one level deep. It goes 3, 4, 5 levels deep in this process. And we were finding that maybe our supplier was okay, but their supplier, one of their critical, that was a component of ours, came up and had a problem with getting reopened or something else. So we were seeing expanding lead times, but at the same time, all of us are eating at home, right? During this period, we're going through the grocery store. Well, guess what? All of our stuff goes into grocery stores mostly. And so there was increased demand on it. So at the time where we're seeing suppliers slow down, we're seeing the consumer side increase, the sales side increase for the demand, because everybody's going in and buying 10 pounds of potatoes or, stocking up the home shelves. There was a lot of pressure at the grocery stores. You all saw the situation with toilet paper and shelves being emptied and a lot of things. So our sales team is saying, hey, we need more, we need more, we need more. And we're like, we don't have raw material. We don't have raw material. We can make it, but we don't have raw material. So we went into the situation as our cushion of raw material. We normally kept a supply of raw material for like 2 or 3 weeks worth of production. We saw that shrinking down we said we can't continue, we have to enhance this. So the only way we could do this is to add more raw material suppliers. We normally have at least 2 suppliers for all of our raw materials so that we are not caught behind one. But we've now expanded that to 3 and 4 suppliers, because as they've all taken longer to get there, we've had to add 3 and 4 suppliers and qualify them to make sure they can produce the products that we need during this time. So we've, almost doubled our supply chain in terms of the available suppliers that we normally use, just to fill, because at the time our demand is increasing, our supply was decreasing. So it's, we're working at opposite ends and something that's not sustainable. So we've added more suppliers into that. And just to give you an idea, as much as even last week, we ran out of raw material last week and we were out for 2 hours in our production plant. But we had material come in that we were scheduling coming in. But that's how tight our ship is running right now with the supply chains. That is really not any signs of changing. For the I don't think now through the end of the year that's going to change. We're going to be that tight on supply, even though we've added more suppliers. And we don't have an infinite supply of suppliers to add. Everybody's adding suppliers. So we're working hard to add that and to bring those things into the picture. And then we do also support some of our domestic production with imported product. There's a couple products that we sell to our customers buy that we don't make, that we import because we don't have the technology to make it. The other thing that we found is that even though we were importing from like Germany and Spain some supplies, they could make it. Obviously they have their challenges with COVID the same way and are experiencing the same thing we have. But then we get to the transportation side of the equation. The transportation logistics has been totally upended because when we were all getting the Chinese supply, containers are moving back and forth daily. It's like going to the airport and there's 12 flights to Chicago from St. Louis, okay? You shut down the Chinese side, now there's only 1 flight to Chicago. So containers and ships coming out of Europe were cut dramatically down. So even though the product was available, and in the past you could get it on a ship in 2 or 3 days and it'd be on the water, set sail for the US. Now it's like once every 2 weeks a container is leaving for the US in the lowest point. It's up to about once a week now. But if you miss it by a day, your supply chain is pushed back by at least a week, maybe 2 weeks into this equation. So not only do we have to look at our domestic supply chain, but also our international supply chain and managing that. In fact, after this call, I have a call with one of my international suppliers today about forecasting for us going into the 4th quarter. So we've had to increase some of their orders. At the same time, they're seeing the same thing, increased orders, but some of their suppliers were slowing down at the same time. So we've got this, elastic, pulling the opposite directions. Demand is increasing, but supply is shrinking because of all these shutdowns that people are going through, and businesses can't just stop and turn on a dime. So the dynamics of it have been just crazy. I don't know what it's going to be every day we come into the office with a new challenge that, hey, this supplier calls up and says, I had your order, but I just can't get it because, and they got 10 reasons. And I can scream and yell all I want, but reality isn't going to get there. Now we're back into some limited reopening in a lot of states. And we're continually monitoring our supply chain. And we have to stay in touch with all these suppliers almost on a weekly type basis to know what's going on their side. And communication has been kind of the key. Illinois has had a resurgence in certain areas, and there's certain partial lockdowns that have taken place again. They're talking now about, they've shut down a lot of restaurants and bars and different things that are there, but that puts pressure back for people eating at home, more pressure on the retail side. And it's basically kind of created a new reality for us over the next quarter, next 2 quarters. Who knows when we'll return, if ever, to some sense of normalcy. But the reality is right now our customers are placing larger orders because they're saying, I just need more. So we're getting more orders. we're asking more quarterly forecasting so I can take that information to my suppliers and try to do it, so that we're trying to get more open communication downstream. Suppliers. So our suppliers are asking us for forecasting, saying, hey, we're trying to figure out how to get you materials. Can you give us a bigger picture? And it's hard to do in this crazy environment of COVID. We're looking at 6-month forecasting right now for our international suppliers. And I don't know anybody's got a 6-month crystal ball, but that's what we're trying to work from. We're working on internal capacity enhancements to increase throughput to meet this additional demand. We've added employees. And there's been a lot of stress management going on because we do have, people worked overtime. We've had people working through the stress of their personal life with family challenges with COVID, whether it's children in school, maybe it's daycare, maybe it's 2 spouses working from home with 1 computer system at home. They've had to work with dynamics of getting another computer set up, working in different parts of their home. I've had stories where one of my people here works in a basement office and his wife works in the kitchen table, but they want to be far enough apart so they can't hear each other's conversations because it's distracting. So there's been a lot of stress of they want to come back to work so I can manage it easier here than I can at home. So they're working through those stress things. And how do we manage that? We just completed last week an employee appreciation day. We barbecued for our employees, told them about the successes we've managed so far, getting through COVID to where we are, kind of tell them what we're looking for through the end of the year, encouraging the continued diligence on safety, with COVID and, wearing masks and doing the right things with hand sanitizing and being smart and being in situations where it could be, because we don't want to bring it back to the office and back to the plant. We've had COVID here. Fortunately, it's been limited. It's been in the plant. We did not have any cluster. And that's what our biggest fear is, a clustering event. I can manage 1 or 2 people. We can survive. We can't survive a large outbreak that shuts down operations. So we've talked about clustering events and a situation that could cause a cluster. We talk about people that have exposure. Let us know. We'll manage through it. But keep informed. Don't live be recluse and just come in and say, I hope something doesn't happen. Communicate if you've had someone in a family exposed or whatever. We'll try to work through and make sure we get enhanced distancing, any PPE that we can do to do that. But we still have to work through this because we're critical to the supply chain, the food supply chain. If there's no packaging, you can't get the product to the customer.
Right.
So our employees understand and know how important they are, and what they take pride in knowing that they're helping, keep all of us supplied, the grocery store supplied. We did do a employee bonus during the initial stages of the lockdown, kind of like some people call it a hazard pay or whatever. We call it like an employee appreciation bonus for coming in and saying, be careful, be diligent, do the right things out there, use good common sense. But we didn't do it all as one lump sum. We split it over a period of pay periods so that people had to be here to get it. And so it wasn't, we didn't want it to be, hey, you have to come in to get this, and if you've got COVID, you're going to get you're going to bring it into the plant. We really spread it out, and it worked out pretty well. We don't know what we're going to do going forward, but right now, our employee appreciation was well received by everybody, and we're actually doing some further gifts. We're going to give everybody jackets this fall, with some Sev-Rend, some logos on them. We just ordered those for the company, and to kind of appreciate the employees and what they're doing to help us be successful during this COVID period. So each day is a new challenge with what it brings. We're prepared for an outbreak, internally, with being able to get people away from each other. We do our video conferencing like this. We do a monthly management meeting. My accountant's next door to me. We do it video conference. So we're trying to keep people as far apart as we can, even though we may be in the office together. We spend time, on Teams is the program that we typically use with all our salesmen. And we've encouraged our sales team to be doing more video conferencing with their customers. It's kind of a new reality. There's a lot more. We've discovered we don't have to travel as much as we thought we did with some customers. So there's a new thing going on, and we don't have to have some of our sales members. We had one housed permanently here in the office. We basically kicked them out and said, you don't have to be in the office. He lives 5 miles away, but we video just like the rest of the sales team. Let's keep that exposure down as small as possible for us in the company. So we're continually just looking out for the potential problems and addressing them quickly as they pop up. So that's how we managed through COVID. That's how we've gotten to where we are today.
And it doesn't sound like it's really going to change all that much, at least within the next 6 months.
No, I did during the employee barbecue talk about flu shots. Our insurance covers flu shots 100%, encouraged everybody. Had a lot of head nods, people saying, yeah, this is the year you don't want COVID and the flu at the same time. So, encouraging those types of good practices. But yeah, I don't see anything changing between now and in the first quarter, really.
Yeah. Are you considering bringing someone in to give flu shots to those employees who want?
No, we have enough local places that are available and let people choose their own. I think it's bigger for people liking to make their own choices.
Right.
I think people, hey, I'm comfortable going to my doctor to get my flu shot, or I'm comfortable going to my local CVS or Walgreens to get it because I'm going there anyway and it's convenient. More so than stopping the production to give everybody a flu shot here. So we like that personal choice, and people are very responsive to that.
Do you take people's temperature as they come in each morning?
Yes, we do. We have the temperatures in the plant. We don't take everybody's in the plant coming in. We have it available for self-checking. We again have put a lot on self-done. We're not the marshal saying, hey, come here, I'm going to test you.
Right.
Anybody saying, hey, check, we have it available. If you have any questions, we have one of the front entrance. I check mine every day I come in. Anybody that we do deem appropriate to come in, whether it's like it's an employee interview, we have a questionnaire, we do take their temperature, anybody that we don't know from the outside, but we do have that readily available. And again, we rely a lot on our employees to tell us. And they like that freedom to be able to do that.
Yeah. Mary has put a couple of things in chat. First of all, she said she was impressed by your diligence managing risk in the work environment and the compassion and understanding for the various challenges employees face individually. She's also said, very interesting to hear a real world recap of how the pandemic has impacted your business. And she wants to thank you for sharing. Oh,
my pleasure. My pleasure.
You had indicated with regard to suppliers that you normally operate with 2, and now you've had to expand. How, I would think that there's like quality in those or certain aspects are that you chose those first 2. How did you expand what you decided would be a good?
Typically we have two primaries, okay? And then we usually have a bench, I call it a bench of 3 or 4 others that maybe haven't chosen because maybe they weren't in the price competitive nature that we wanted them to be. Maybe they're a little further away. Maybe freight was more of a factor for them shipping to us than somebody a little bit closer. So, it's a preference of our top 2, and that's who you kind of do. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule. You usually do business with who you want to do. You get some good relationships long-term. And as pressure come on those, then we had the ones on the bench that we already had pre-qualified, but we just kind of opened up several things. But we did have to qualify a couple extra because not all of our products have that many sources. There's a couple of them that there's only 2 or 3 worldwide sources for. Wow. So, you can't, there's not 12 of them you can pick from. There's only 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So you really have to work hard on those. And some of those suppliers actually went on what they call force majeure, which means they were on allocation limiting to what you were going to get in terms of supply.
Wow.
So you really have to, and any of those that we saw, those are the ones we're continually looking for. And in fact, we're working now with a couple of new suppliers that we hadn't used before, for just various reasons. A simple reason, one is one of them has the ability to make large rolls, was what we prefer for our converting equipment, so less changes. Several other suppliers can make our product, but they can only make rolls half the size. Okay, so that creates more roll changes. It changes time. Then there's also a waste anytime you change a roll. We prefer the larger rolls, so we gravitate towards them. But now we're having to force to take the smaller rolls because it's either them or none.
Right.
So that's some of the changes we do. So now that creates a waste environment in our plant and our cost structure that we have to deal with. So we have to estimate to our customers now a little different cost model because we have to absorb that type of change.
Wow.
In the supply chain.
I tell you what, I could ask you more and more questions, and we could open it, and I would like to open it up to see if anybody has any questions. We are right at 8 o'clock. So, but does anyone have any questions for Greg before we go? I have, and I don't know that this is really a brief question. Have you found that working remotely for those in your office has changed your culture? Or how are you maintaining your culture?
That's a really good question. And it's broken into two categories. It has changed the culture of our sales team because they were remote before and they did a lot of travel before. They now are working more and they've actually gotten closer to some customers. And they have, believe it or not, they've exhibited more stress than our folks in the office have.
Really?
Mainly because now they're on the computer all the time. Their customers are back and forth to them, and they said, I can't get away. Where before they had time in the car, were traveling. They had time on an airplane, they were traveling. They had time where they enjoyed dinner with customers and social interaction. They don't get. Now they get the call, where's my order? It's late. I need more than I have. I'm in a crunch. I need more than I ordered before. Can you help me out with this? They're dealing with more pressure situations than they ever had before. And they don't get their reliefs. So the pressure on the sales team has probably been more, which I wouldn't have predicted going into this. No. I thought, those guys are at home anyway. It's just, no big deal. But they said, I can't get away. I don't get that social interaction that an extroverted salesperson really, really enjoys.
I think Gail can really relate to that, right, Gail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our internal team has, like for me and for a lot of us, we go to work every day. We leave home and we go back home. That really hasn't changed for our office staff, other than we broke it up a couple of times. We said, hey, stay home this week, test your remote access, test all the functionality, come back, let's recap, and what do you need? In case we do have a larger breakout or some situations where we need people to be home for a longer period, let's stress test our systems and do it. We actually just upgraded some computers in the last month. Because of that, we found that they were slow in an outside environment. And it's not just work from home for what you got here, but you have to test your personal internet access at home.
Right.
A lot of people have a lot more pipe internet coming in at their office than they do at home.
Sure.
Unless you had a work from home environment before that you really were pushing, high speeds. Now you're testing, hey, I got kids at home working on the computer. I got myself working on the computer. I'm getting bounced off more. I'm dropping off the internet. I'm dropping off calls. There's a lot of those things that are really being tested.
Yeah. Incredible. Well, I truly, truly appreciate your doing this morning. And again, I can ask you questions that'll probably take your morning, but thank you so much for doing this. And this will be recorded and I'll send you the link to it so you can share with those that you would like to share as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I enjoy the opportunity. And like I said, it's something you could talk about for hours, but we have a business to run. We have to get back to
exactly.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming to hear Greg.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Be safe, everyone.